Today we'll be going over more Brothers War spoilers. As per usual, we're going over the more interesting slash newer cards, probably mostly within the rare slash mythic side of things. Of course, I'm going to be giving my thoughts about them in EDH, but also if I do see some use of it in Standard, or particularly when I do play Standard, I'm playing on Magic Arena. So if I'm seeing use for it in my decks, I usually play on Arena, which I played, I would like to think of variety. We'll give a talk about it here and there, but mostly is it going to be good in EDH and where it would stand in EDH. So let's get into it. First card is Siege Veteran, 2 and a white for creature human soldier. At the end of combat on your turn, put +1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever another non-token soldier you control dies, create one colorless soldier artifact creature token, 2/2. I am such a big fan of cards like this. There was another one, I forgot what it was called. I think it was some medic or veteran, I think. And it was 2 mana 1/1. I think it got nerfed in Arena, but it essentially did the same thing, but it didn't have this other effect that it created a 1/1 color soldier creature token. And honestly, I was a big fan of that. Like, I think those cards, especially in regards to like clerics, are kind of very like on theme, thematic, right? Clerics are sort of buffing your people, giving you health and stuff like that. I think this is like a really nice way to actually portray what a cleric would do in battle. Now this is a human soldier veteran, which I don't think matters too much. The soldier part might matter for the set, from what I've seen. But like, yeah, I'm a huge fan of this. I think it's super strong. The fact that you can put a counter on itself, super good. So it'll be a 3 mana 3/3 that if it dies, it'll make a 1/1. I think that's pretty fair for white. It does require your opponent to interact with it before combat in order for them to sort of stop you from getting the most value out of it. Like, it's not even that, because as soon as it hits the battlefield and it dies without even the trigger happening, the death trigger will happen. So like this is a pretty solid card. I would imagine if there is a soldier, even if it's non-soldier, really, right? Because the first ability just cares about you having a creature out. This is just buffing your creatures up. Like, I think this is pretty solid even without Soldier Tribal being super strong in Standard. I would like to rate this probably being playable in Standard. In EDH, probably playable too, just because post-most counter decks are pretty popular. I don't know, well, when post-most counters are really popular, there's a lot of things like these get put in just because they're very easy source of post-most encounters, and usually they're sort of manipulated with other cards in your deck. Soldier card probably won't matter too much, but it's probably too weak for people to target it too much. I think it'll be pretty much just sitting on the battlefield accumulating counters. So that being said, I think it's not a particularly strong strategy in EDH. We'll rate it a low power commander card, but not to say it's bad. I think it's really solid for any deck who wants to use it. Next up is Mechanized Warfare. 1 red an enchantment for if a red or artifact source you control deal damage to an opponent, or permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +1 instead. This reads a lot like a red anthem effect, and I'm super happy that red sort of has that now. This is like one in a long chain of like enchantments that sort of double damage, triple damage, or just deal more damage just by having enchantment out, and super big fan of it. I think this is like one of those things where like if you wanted to play something that's similar or akin to a white anthem go wide strategy, this is exactly what you need. Not only that, but unlike white decks, since red can do just damage to the face, it's a red source. With that red damage to the face, it just gets +1, right? So I really like the versatility in this. It really shows that like red and white are like really strong strategies for aggro because of these sort of abilities. These sort of enchantments sticking on the field that can, you know, somehow cause extra cumulative damage that are really strong and impactful when you have multitudes of permanents. That's a really cool way of showing like how red and white will shine. Yeah, I think this is really cool. Probably will see some play in EDH, but the fact that it's artifact and red source makes me think it's probably gonna be in a more color restricted color EDH deck, right? It's gonna be like fewer colors than most red decks would probably. Yeah, your red deck would probably need a high source of red cards, and that means it's probably gonna be heavier on red than like it's probably gonna have like 1 or 2 colors at most. That's what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense. With that being said, I would think this has some play in Standard, just because I think it's like so low of a cost, and having so many artifacts in Standard, I would think it can see some play in Standard. I don't think there's too much enchantment removal either from what I've seen, so I'm having high hopes for this one. The dealing +1 damage, I think over time will definitely add, especially if like you're playing some sort of group slug thing, where like +1 damage and your slug effects are dealing damage. I think it's gonna be pretty strong. 1 damage adds up a lot. Like just find any pinger in Commander and just see how much damage it does during the whole game. 1 damage will do a lot. Yeah, so this I would say goes into that sort of strategy, and it'll be racking up a lot of damage during the game. So I'm gonna put this as a mid-power EDH card. Yeah, super psyched to see this card. One with the Multiverse. 6 and a blue for an enchantment with, you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from your hand or the top of your library without paying its mana cost. So this is like really close to an Omniscience, also really close to a I still haven't looked up the name of that one card. I know last review there was like another card that sort of had the same effect, and basically it's just playing cards on top of your library. Is it called Future Sight? I think it is Future Sight. So this is really close to like a Future Sight and an Omniscience. Now, if you add Omniscience and Future Sight together into one card, Omniscience is basically a lot of mana. Probably it takes like 10 or 9 mana, I think, right? And it lets you play an infinite number of free spells from your hand. So it's not quite like Omniscience, but the fact that you can get play spells from top of your library, I think it makes it another Timmy card that's like really close to Omniscience, and that is still pretty scary, but it doesn't have the same gravity, of course. That being said, I think it's super strong still, regardless. It does require you to make one turn around. Oh, actually no, it's only once during each of your turns you may cast a spell from top of your library. So you can actually play this and then play like a big Timmy spell from your hand. So it's like really close to Omniscience in that sense. You don't have to wait. It's not like an upkeep trigger or something. Yeah, I'm actually liking this more I think about it. But of course, it's 8 mana. That's a lot. That's a lot. I don't think this will see play in standard, but I do think this will see some play in like low power EDH decks. So that'll be interesting. I don't think it'll be any higher than low, just because there's sort of a ceiling to this, where like you can only play one spell, and it's like, is that one spell really going to be more than 8 mana? I highly doubt it. Otherwise, you would just play that spell, right, instead of playing this. So there is some trade-off. I guess you can sort of bait spells out with this, but even in that sense, it's not really a super competitive strategy. But it's very fun and Timmy, so we'll add that. Next one is Brotherhood's End. 1 red and red for a sorcery with choose one. Brotherhood's End deals damage to each creature and each planeswalker, or destroy all artifacts of mana value 3 or less. I'm a big fan of this card. This reads as a 3 mana board wipe. Red's got a few of those, and black gets a few of those. White can occasionally get those. This is sweet. I think this is really sweet. I think an EDH is going to be super strong, especially being red. This is so close to just being like a really decent Vandal Blast. But the fact is, if you're playing cards like these and you're trying to wipe artifacts, I really... Do you rely on artifacts yourself? Like, do you put artifacts in your deck if you're going to play this? It is pretty versatile. Like, you can just wipe, I guess, people's commanders with the board wipe. 3 damage each creature and each planeswalker. But I feel like a lot of times you still do want to hit that mana value 3 or less from artifacts. Like, that'll hit so much. There's so many artifacts in this game now. There's always been so much, I guess. There's a lot of artifacts, I will say, of high mana value in this set. So maybe if people are playing a lot of new cards that are high mana value, it's probably not going to be as strong as, you know, people would like to think this is. But it's still like a really strong effect. The versatility is insane here. I kind of want to say this is going to see some play. I really feel like that. If you're playing maybe spell slingery kind of strategy, this is probably super good. Just because both sort of strategies, like a spell slinger control strategy, will want to take advantage of this the most. They want to have the long game, will make their deck rely a little less on artifacts that cost 3 less mana. They can afford to do that if they have enough interaction. I would say it could work in that. I think this will see play in standard, and probably will see play in high power plus EDH. I think it's just like a super versatile card. I think it's sweet. Next one is Fortified Beachhead. I saw this card and was like, okay, this is probably gonna have some sort of tribal strategy in the next upcoming set for at least 60 card formats. So I thought just throw this in here. It's a little high of investment for 6 mana to get all your soldiers +1/+1, but it definitely shows that like maybe soldiers will become super prevalent. And especially because a lot of white does have to do with making tokens, and there's actually a white artifact creature token in the set, maybe it'll be worth throwing a few of these in there. They do come in untapped. You're probably playing one of soldiers, so I think it'll be interesting. Probably not going to see too much play in... Would it see any play? Soldier Tribal. Unless it's Soldier Tribal, it's not going to see too much play in EDH. I'll put it at low. Next up is one of my favorites. Tokasius Digsite. The land that taps for colorless but also has 3 mana to surveil 1. Listen, I'm a mono white enjoyer, mono white player. Everyone knows this. I really enjoy utility lands. One is because there's just not enough, I guess, land destruction out there where like they will really interact with like these utility lands such that, you know, they're just going to stop me from getting my small incremental value from them. So whenever I see these things, I'm just like, okay, you can destroy my creatures, you can destroy my artifacts, enchantments, but lands are so sacred, no one's gonna interact with them. So I just try to really hang in on those small incremental advantages, and this is, I feel like, one of those, especially when I'm playing things like, you know, return things from your library or graveyard, or if I want to have a way to get things to the graveyard. This is like one of those things. It's also filtering things on top of your deck. Big fan of this. I think I'll put it in a lot of my decks, especially the ones that are less colors, such as my mono white decks. Big fan of this. I will probably play some of this, although I don't think it's that strong. I would kind of, and this is also a Powder Stone payoff. Is it Powder Stone? I'm sorry. Power Stone is a Power Stone payoff. I would say this is probably low power, albeit I'll be playing a lot of this. I think it's super sweet to have in low color decks. I don't think it'll be played in standard, but I could be wrong here. Just because I feel like there's still not a ton of Power Stone payoffs, but maybe big bad creature artifacts are gonna be played a lot, and I'll be, eating my words. But yeah, this is definitely gonna be added to one of my decks. Next up is a small uncommon here. I think this is one of those cards that like are really, ooh. Oh, wait, okay, I misread this a little bit, but I still think it's fine in standard. So when Falaji, Archaeologist, 1 and a 2, is a creature human scout. Whenever it enters battlefield, mill 3 cards. You may put a non-creature, non-land card from among them. The cards mill this way into your hand. If you don't, put plus counter on Falaji Archaeologist. So it's gonna be a 1/4, or it could be a 2-mana loot sort of effect. It's kind of like the Glint Nest Crane. I think that was in was it Kaldheim? Not Kaldheim. Kaladesh? I think that saw a lot of play. This is like sort of similar, except you're not seeing as many cards. And it does really require you to have some sort of way of getting things back from your graveyard, which there's a lot. There's a lot in this set. So I think this is like fine for standard. I don't think you'll see play in EDH now that I'm re-looking at this. So I'll put it at low for EDH. Next is Loren, Disciple of History. 3 and a white for legendary creature, Human Artificer. When Loren or another legendary creature enters battlefield under your control, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. 3/3. This is really similar to Teshar. I'm curious if there's no way like this is better than Teshar, right? Teshar just cares about low value creatures. This just cares about legendaries. It's a higher bar to hit compared to Teshar, and it goes back to your hand. Where I think Teshar goes back to the battlefield, right? It just straight up reanimates, so it's more value in that sense from Teshar. I still think it's a really cool commander. I don't know who would play this though. So you would need legendaries that also care about your graveyard. I would imagine. I will say maybe put it low power. I feel like it's just if you're playing mono white, this is your commander, low power. Maybe it could be in the 99. Maybe there's some strategy that could make this work. Maybe mid. I don't know. I'd say low power. Yeah, I think I'll put it there. I don't think you'll see that much play in standard though. Next up is Calamitys Wake. 1 and a white for an instant with Exile all graveyards. Players can't cast on creature spells this turn. Exile Calamitys Wake. This is interesting because it's a silent effect that hits all players. So it basically straight up just ends the turn if you're playing a very instant based or non-permanent based gameplay. So I think it'll be really interesting in higher level pods. And with that being said, I'm going to put it at a high power plus for this sort of card. I think the fact that it exiles all graveyards, so it interacts with not the battlefield, but it interacts, stops, which I think is a pretty popular combo right now, Underworld Breach combos, and it stops sort of, I guess, spell-based combos as well by stopping people from casting spells this turn. I think this is really cool. I'm actually surprised they have this in a, I want to say, standard set, because it's been so long since they've had, like, stop sort of playing spells kind of effects, right? They've had a few, right? They stable on the creatures and stuff like that, but it feels like it's been so far in between for, like, super powerful effects like this. I feel like this is super strong. I'm surprised it's uncommon, too. But yeah, I think this is a super strong effect. I think it'll see play in EDH. The fact that it's graveyard removal, exiles all graveyards, maybe it might be a turnoff because, sometimes you care about your graveyard. I know I'll cover my graveyard, but maybe you just want to have one of those effects in there that does stop people who are, have one of those as have one of these as like your graveyard interactions. Maybe you have ways to protect your graveyard, so that way the graveyard cause doesn't matter for you. I think it's really rough though. I would say this is probably going to be, I think, played I might see some play in high power EDH. I'll put it at mid power. I don't think you'll see any play in standard, but I think mid-power EDH plus. Mid-power plus, I'll put it there. A little skeptical on the exiling all graveyards because I think everyone relies on their graveyard nowadays. But yeah. Next is one of my favorites. It's just Lay Down Arms. 1 white for sorcery with exile target creature's mana value less than or equal to number of planes you control. Its controller gains 3 life. This is really similar to Oust, I think, in that it basically removes a creature. And the interesting thing about this one is they made it so monocolor decks, or decks that have fewer colors, matter more. And I've been a huge proponent of this for a while. I'm just like, what's stopping people from playing like 5-color mosh, just like colors? Like, it infuriates me because it's like they're doing all these degenerate things with all their colors because, if you have all the colors, you can just literally do anything. But it feels like you're not playing honest Magic. Like, you relying on one color seems like the way to play Magic to me. But that's just my personal feeling. That, like, Magic, I think, is better when people are sort of hinging on one particular color. Or not one particular color, but, like, fewer colors, the better. Because otherwise, you get a whole bunch of piles that are just, like, Kenrith piles. Like, have you ever played against four-person pod with everyone playing Kenrith? Oh, geez. It's literally everyone playing the same game over and over. Where, like, I think restriction breeds creativity. I feel like this is one of those cards that benefits that. While you get some sort of, redundancy in that everyone's playing the best in a single color, there are some corner cases that, especially depending on the commander you're playing, where like the cards just totally differ. I'm a big fan of that. So I feel like this is one of those cards that are probably gonna be a staple in commander going forward if you're playing a few color white decks. I think it'll be played in, just because it's basically Swords of it feels like Swords of Plowshares that relies on mana value, which I think you're fine with. If you're going second, like imagine you're going second, your opponent plays a 2-drop, you play your 2-drop, but you also can like play Lay Down Arms, exile their 2-drop, and then play your 1-drop. So like it's fine with tempo. It's fine on tempo. Yeah, I like this card a lot. There's not much I can say against it. I feel like this is super powerful. The fact that it helps people who are devoted to fewer colors, I enjoy so much. Putting this all my decks, it'll see you play in probably, if you're playing like, I don't know, if you're playing high power commander, are you really playing mono white? I feel like you can be, but if you're playing high power mono white and you're playing like an aggressive deck, which I feel like most high power mono white decks are, why don't you just rely on more like artifacts and stuff like that? And if you are, you could just be relying on a lot of like utility lands, just because your pips requirements are probably so low. So like there's no real need for this, or like you're not gonna hit as many high mana value creatures with this. I don't know. Like this definitely tends towards like and I may be wrong here, but I feel like this definitely tends towards more control-based strategies because it requires you to have a lot of land. Aggro decks probably don't want to play that many lands, but it'll be interesting to see. Will be interesting to see how this turns out. So yeah, we'll put it mid power plus. I'm definitely gearing towards high, but I think mid power plus is like a safe bet on where this card might lay out, and I think it'll see some play in, just because I think cards like I guess March the Otherworldly Light is played, and that is tempo negative. This is tempo positive, and the downside is like pretty negligible, especially for like control decks. Although it is sorcery and you can't pitch it, you can definitely pitch. Well, you can pitch it. You can pitch it to Otherworldly Light. But in the case where like this isn't hitting like an enchantment, you can pitch it to Otherworldly Light. So I don't know. We'll say this is going to see some play in standard as well. Next is Full of Knowledge, 4 and a blue instant with draw a card for each island you control, then discard 2 cards. I think this might see some play in mono-colored blue decks, because drawing a card for each island you control, then discard 2 cards seems like really good. Although I'm starting to read it now, I thought it was draw a card for each island you control, but it has that discard 2 cards thing, and it's like 5 mana, draw 5, discard 2, just draw 3 at that point. You do see 5 though. I'm not sure what to make of it at this point now. I think maybe white just got the best of the bunch in this cycle, which I don't mind at all. If this is a sweet card though, I would say low power EDH, and then probably won't see any play in standard. Next up is Demolition Field, 2 and a colorless, or sorry, 2. Oh, I have to restart all over, jeez. It taps for colors, but also has 2 mana. Tap, sacrifice it, destroy target non-basic land and opponent controls. That land's controller may search your library for basic. You may search your library for your basic, then shuffle. So this is a lot like Field of Ruin, but in EDH's sense of this card, it's probably not going to be. It's probably going to be second Field of Ruin, and it's not going to ramp all your opponents, so it's super strong in that case. And I'm a big fan of that because, geez, I hate using Field of Ruin just because it ramps everyone. Maybe it's good in white now because, you know, you get the extra lands from your different white things carrying about. People don't have more lands than you. But geez, is the downside sometimes. In standard, I can see this is probably going to be played in standard. Probably actually be played. It does force your opponents to shuffle up. Actually, this doesn't force your opponents to shuffle up. Field of Ruin, I do believe, forces your opponents to shuffle. I could be wrong here, but I think it does. So that could have some ramification. I'm not too quite privy of. But yeah, this could be definitely a staple in, I think, standard. Maybe EDH too, just because like it's a super cheap costing land destruction I built the spell. Maybe we'll see play there too. Next up is Combat Thrasher. Okay, probably no one was expecting me to hit this on here. 7 generic for an artifact creature construct with prototype, 2 and a white, 1/1, double strike. When Combat Thrasher enters the battlefield, draw a card. I put this on here because I thought this was like a pretty interesting double striker, and that it ETB draws you a card for 3 mana. We've seen that a lot. We've seen that with like a bunch of, I guess, not flyers necessarily, but we've seen that with a bunch of like newer white cards that are just ETB drawing a card. This is drawing a card, and if you're playing this against like, I guess, aggro, this just basically nets you a card, right? Because aggro probably has low toughness. This is killing one of their creatures. It's drawing you a card. It can defend a bit, which I think is interesting. I don't think it means much, but like, I think it's quite interesting to think about. So I think it won't see any play in EDH, but I do think it might see. Ooh, maybe this is just like a limited card actually. Maybe. I like the idea though. I like the idea. Next up is Root Path Purifier. 3 and a green for legendary. Not legendary. That'd be even better. Creature, elf, druid. Lands you control and land cards in your library are basic 3/4. I was told that these cards, or I'm sorry, the new set had a bunch of blue, black, red blue, black, white based creatures. That is Mishra and Urza. And so green was kind of missing out, and this is basically one of those cards that are just like, yeah, we need to throw green a bone in here. And this is that card. This card is really sweet. I think it lets a lot of, this is probably gonna be like one of those cards that everyone has to buy, because otherwise it's like gonna be $1 bajillion down the road and you can't feel like you've been missing out. This is gonna help a lot of those, I guess, budget players, assuming you do get the precon. I'm assuming this is the precon, because having the ability to search for any card as if it was a basic means you just get any of your super strong legendary lands. You get like Urborg, you get, you know, all those cards. Actually, can you fetch Ashaya? Is she a land in the library? I don't know. I don't think you can, but if you could fetch Ashaya, that would be dope. But that means like your creatures can become basic lands if you have Ashaya. Like, it makes things interesting. This is like one of the reasons why it's cool to play like green, and the fact that you have a lot of land manipulation. And it's seen here, like lands in your library are basic. This means you could do like Evolving Wilds into Fabled Passage, into Terramover Expanse, into just some fetch and another fetch, and you just keep going through. Yeah, this is real neat. This is really neat. I'm a big fan of this card. I think this will show a lot of cool combos that will be hopefully revealed, or maybe there's some already out there, I don't know. But yeah, I think this can lead to a lot of interesting gameplay. I'm looking forward to that. Probably will see play in EDH. I would say probably not high power, just because I think the strategy might be a little too slow. I could be wrong here, but maybe there's some like delicate line or something that people might be able to take advantage of. But I can see this definitely in mid power. It's definitely like one of those mid power cards. So mid power and lower probably want this card. I think high power is a little too fast for this card. Next up is my wifey, okay? Loren of the Third Path. Jeez, never have I ever wanted a card more, I feel like. I still love Mangara, but whew, I'm definitely thinking about it. So Lorena of the Third Path is a 2 and a white legendary creature, human artificer with vigilance. Whenever Lorena of the Third Path enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. You can tap Lorena of the Third Path to have you and target opponent draw a card, 2/1. So this reads a lot like a Reclamation Sage, except it's a little better. It has vigilance, so go in for attacks, but also you can draw a card. It's like a weird Phyrexian Arena, and I'm a huge fan of the idea that cards that have you and one other opponent draw a card keep you with parity at a table full of full potted table, so table of 4 including yourself, because you had to think of it this way, that basically you are fighting to win against 3 other players, and one player drawing 1 card is essentially just like, often the fact is essentially like your opponent, and a 6 card from that, your opponent drawing 1/3 of a card. That's how I think of it, because they still have to fight against each other as well. So that 1 card they're drawing could potentially make them win. Yeah, that's definitely an argument I've heard. But also you can think of it as them using that card to just interact and be there in the game. So I think I'm a big fan of this card. I'm like, is this like too generic for a commander? It might be, but like think of this as like not like Stacks Commander, but maybe you can think of it like Stacks Commander. It could be like a weird Phyrexian Arena that you can come in, and it's like Reclamation Sage as well. Oh, this is just drawing a card each turn on your own dime, which is a little different than Mangara. Mangara can come in and like, just because I play Mangara, Mangara can come in and draw a few cards off your opponents, but having the ability to draw based off of your opponents is it can be rough at times. People, especially if you're playing higher the power level, people will like stop and just like, oh, don't play too many spells. It'll slow the game down a lot. This is interesting. I think this is, and like if you replay it, if you kill my commander, I'm not too mad, right? Like I'm just playing it again, destroying something. So you're getting card advantage off it. You destroying one of their things also is definitely, I feel like, one way to offset the thing that the fact that you're giving your opponents a draw. Yeah, this is really cool. You don't really care if someone destroys your commander, because I'm just gonna play it again and I'm gonna destroy the biggest, baddest artifact. I'm a huge fan of this card. I am so glad White has finally got a Reclamation Sage after like 6 years or something like that. Mind you, it is at Legendary, so playing it as a sort of just like 4 of is not really doable in Standard. I know this is like part of the Standard set, but geez, this is gonna be a staple. I'm gonna get a few of these probably. This is probably one of my favorite cards. No, I don't know. The fact that, ooh, it is a little slow. There are ways to untap creatures in White, so maybe we can burst through a bunch of cards in White now. We're gonna see if we can make this work. We're gonna see, okay? Mark my words, you'll see a video of this. Yeah, this card is dope. I think it'll see play in, honestly, high power plus, just because it's like a White Reclamation Sage effect, and White really cares about stacks pieces. And I say it's stacks piece because I think it works against one of the more popular win cons, that is like Thassa's Oracle. And also the off chance that like an opponent can look for something to interact with another opponent with like a mystical tutor, I think that's like a pretty decent use case for this card as well. So big fan of this card for that case. I don't think it'll see playing standard. It might, like an aggro deck, it might. Next up is Liberator, Urzas Battle Thopter, 3 mana for legendary artifact creature Thopter. With flash, flying, and you may cast color spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast it was greater than Liberator power's power, put some counter on Liberator, 1/2. I think this is a lot like, what's that one card? Roth Capuchin, the 4 mana version that gave you artifact spells, your historic spells flash. Except this is generic, so what are you putting in this in your deck? If you put this as your commander, what do you do with it? I don't know. Anyways, I don't think you'll see too much play in commander, probably low power commander, and if it does see some play in commander, it'll probably be as like a secondary Vidalcan Ori, and like your artifact based deck, which is fine. Probably won't see any play in standard either. I think it's just a little too slow. 3 mana for 1/2 with flash and flying. Maybe, since there are a lot of artifacts in this set, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Next up is Stasis Coffin. 3 generic for legendary artifact with 2 tap, exile Stasis Coffin. You gain protection from everything until your next turn. It's not quite a Teferi's protection, but it could be close. I don't know how I feel about this. It's a little slow, and it's on the field to be sitting there. Not really Teferi's protection. I think one thing about Teferi's protection is good is because it's at instant speed. People really play into it. People can't really play into it. I mean, you can to get them to use it, but like it's so obvious. It'll buy you a turn or two, I guess. But I'm not a big fan of this card. I don't think it'll see too much play. It probably played in low power commander. Probably won't see play in standard. Visions of Phyrexia, 2 red for enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play a card this turn. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't play a card from exile this turn, create a tap power token. Oh, this is interesting. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't play a card from exile this turn, create a tapped Power Stone token. This kind of makes it a little more playable because it's 4 mana and it ramps you immediately at the end of your turn. But at the beginning of your upkeep, you can play it as if it were a weird Phyrex Arena effect, which I think I like. I think this will see some play in mid-power commander. Probably won't see too much play in standard. It might see some, I don't know. The fact that it makes a Power Stone every end step, if you don't play anything, maybe. We'll say no standard for now. Might be a little too slow. 4 mana for this enchantment that can just make ramp 2 ones. Maybe it's a little too slow. But maybe there's like a big red deck that wants it. Maybe. Then we have Portal 2 Phyrexia, 9 mana for an artifact with when Portal Phyrexia enters battlefield, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. Beginning your upkeep, target creature card from graveyard on battlefield under your control. It's a Phyrexian and there's other types. I think this will see some play in artifact-based decks that, you know, just can go that big. Really big fan of artifacts that are sort of used as recursion and some sort of like value engine. This fits that, and it also interacts. Huge fan of this. I don't know if I can put it in Oswald. I'm super curious about that. But I'm curious if anyone else what kind of deck everyone else would play this in. The fact that it doesn't hit you feels so good. And you get Phyrexian from this. This is really cool. I think I'm definitely batting against my deck. I think I'll say it's probably mid-power plus in Commander. Probably won't see too much play in high power, if at all. Definitely like a mid-power or lower kind of card. But I don't think you'll see any play in Standard either. So yeah, that's how we're ranking it. Then last but not least, we have Urzas Silex. 3 generic for legendary artifact with 2 white exiles Urzas Silex. Each player chooses 6 lands they control. Destroy all other permanents. Actually, it only has sorcery. When Urzas Silex is put into exile from the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you do, search your library for planeswalker, reveal it, and put it into your hand and shuffle. The same kind of deck wants Karn Silex, I think. This is a little slower. Oh, is it? Yeah, I definitely think it's a little slower. It requires you, if you want to like net cards off of it, it does sort of require you to have planeswalkers, which is fine. Also requires you to sort of be behind, that way you're not getting too much stuff destroyed by this, which is fine. I don't know what kind of deck wants this though. I guess you can use this to destroy everything, then rebuild, but 4 mana at sorcery speed, you have to be at like a high turn already in the game in order to make sure you can rebuild off immediately immediately ulting this. It has that like weird sort of what's that one artifact that like destroys things that for like a 5 mana? It has that sort of effect, but it definitely resets the game a little bit, which I do prefer. I do like this sort of effect because if you're playing last and you can reset the game like this, it throws everyone behind a lot. And it catches you up a lot if you can play after activating this. Big fan of this. I think we'll see play in like mid-power commander and probably none in standard, but just my thoughts. Anyways, let me know what y'all think about these in the comments below. What did I get wrong? What did I get right? Where are you looking to play? I'm definitely liking the Loren card, and there's also a few other cards I enjoy, but curious to see what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. Peace out.